Township Board meeting for Tuesday, April 21st, 2015. If you'd all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Rattari, roll call, please.
Trustee LaRue?
Here.
Trustee Pompo?
Here.
Trustee Trescott?
Here.
Trustee Durant?
Here.
Treasurer Johnson?
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, Township Attorney Roger Zappa, John Marks from the ZBA, Mike Springer from Recreation and Roads, and Dave Wiegand and Paula Limata from Recreation, and Dave Wiegand's on the Planning Commission also. And that's it.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda is approval of the consent agenda. As you know, the consent agenda includes those items which typically do not require immediate board approval or discussion. This evening's includes the prior meeting minutes of April 7th, 2015. Also received committee reports, the Water Production Report of March, the Sheriff's Department Report of March, Fire Marshal's Report of March, the Marquette Election Commission draft minutes from April 7th, the Recreation Committee agenda for April 21st, draft minutes from March 17th, 2015, and the Lions Recreation Master Plan update and Overstar's proposed parking and pathway design. We also have this evening bills payable in the amount of $383,711.07. Are there any items on the consent agenda that any board member wishes to remove for further discussion? Seeing none, I entertain a motion to approve as presented.
I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is approval of the remainder of the agenda. Are there any items on this agenda that any board member wishes to add or subtract?
What about the road project or that?
Manager Gerard told me that they are going to do that under public comment as a privileged comment with the update to the report. Unless you want more Q&A, then we'll put it under unfinished business, Ernie.
We just didn't have it there, so.
Okay. Anything else? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. Support.
Motion and support to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. This will bring us up to public comment. Those members of the public wishing to comment to the board may do so by approaching the podium. First, last name, and your address. If you kept your comments to 3 minutes maximum for this first public comment, it would be appreciated. Thank you. And if you want to go first, Dave, with your privileged comment, you can. Brian, sorry.
That's okay.
Brian, Dave.
I was looking at Dave and I said,
Brian is here with us tonight to give you an update on where we are from our last meeting. At the last meeting, you had approved them going forward with Task 200, which was to create specifications and to put together bidding packages for the road project as it was originally construed and considered. And he's just back tonight to give you a little bit of an update. I did send out electronically and also hard copies in your mailbox where they're at right now, but we'll be putting it up on the screen as well.
so all board members do have a copy, although they just received it, a copy of your update, just so you know.
Yeah, I understand that, and but I just wanted to make sure we said, and we're going to follow through, intend to be here right through the duration of this. Actually, with that, I'd like to ask that you just make us a standard agenda topic for the next several meetings in terms of a road project update. That way, if citizens do want to comment, then it gives them an area to do that as well. We've actually gotten a few different emails and appreciate the public coming out and letting us know different areas in front of their homes and things like that they may have concerns with. And those are the types of things that we encourage and we look at, and we take those seriously when that's going on. So I just want to give you an update here of what we're shooting for, and we're on target with this. We've started to put together what's called a log job package to handle our roads.
Excuse me, Brian, can you take that microphone off? And then you could take it off with the little clip there, yeah.
All
That
right.
helps with the camera.
Okay. So what we're looking at is on the location map that you see here, the red projects right now that we've identified for 2015 are initially considered rehabs, which are the crush and shape projects that we talked about. We've already been in touch with the county, and we actually have a follow-up meeting this Thursday morning to go over this. We still are looking at the Oak Hills potentially as an overlay project, and we're also looking at some of Northwoods as an overlay versus a rehab. But tentatively, these are the 2015 projects, and what this entails is just under 12 miles worth of road right now. There's a target of about 20 miles or 28 total miles of road. So this is 12. The package that'll follow this, that'll also go this year, is crack sealing and joint, and that's going to total about 8 miles. So we're looking at almost 20 out of the 28 miles of road that we're trying to get numbers on this year. So as we said in the last meeting, we've actually increased the scope of this year's construction to over 2/3 of the entire project to try and take advantage of what we anticipate being a lot better blacktop numbers. So so these are the roads that are targeted. This sheet, let's see, I'm going to jump forward here because there's not a lot of time. What we're doing is, this is a set of the bid documents. You'll see every street will be listed. These coincide with what was listed in the election that was held, and all the roads that were identified. So all the roads will be done, not all this year, but they all are being addressed the way they were addressed in the election. You can see what we'll do is we'll be compiling all the quantities. These are getting close to what we've got. We're still finalizing some of them. Each street will have different breakdowns, shoulder work. This is removing some blacktop. This is doing approaches, driveways, pavement markings are included. Some of the other things that you'll find in here in talking with the county, we're also putting some things like guardrail adjustments. If you have guardrail on your road, there's a requirement that the guardrail has to be a certain height from the shoulder of the road. So when we're improving and putting additional blacktop, some of those guardrails may need to be adjusted and raised. So we're trying to identify as many items as we can in the bid package that we're going out with this year. These are the types of roads, what we're looking at right now. A lot of your roads had no curbing on them. The top section there is an existing section. What you've noticed in roads that have been approved lately, we've started trying to collect drainage more within the road itself and to put that into the proper drainage paths so we're not creating that gravel erosion and some of those things that you see around your current roads right now. So we're also not only just trying to fix the pavement structure itself, but to improve some of those things like the drainage that have created some of the problems. These are just several. This is a huge package right now. It wasn't intended for you to look at it, but you can see all this. These are all the different types of roads that we have. We have, in targeting 20 miles worth of road, there's several different sections. So we've been out surveying these, verifying widths, and doing that work. And I have to commend my staff. They're not real happy with me with the time frame that I developed for getting this accomplished, but they're doing it. So we're flying right now, and we've got a lot of manpower dedicated to it. Let me see what else is. Mark, is that other map in here? Okay. All right, these are just to show you. One of the things that the county had concern with is some of the bigger roads actually have what's called super elevation as you go around the curves. So we're also making sure that we're not only just replacing the blacktop, but we're putting the road back the way it should be, that it's designed to proper standards. So all of that stuff is in this package that you have in front of you. I would say we're about 60% complete right now with that. One of the maps that you have in your folder that's not on here also was what the roads that are left. And a lot of those are in the Trowbridge area. And just for board's sake, if you look at the roads in the different coloring, one thing we'll look to do, if these numbers come in and they come in well, all of those roads that are shown in yellow are roads that do not require utilities. And there's a little over another mile there. And we may want to look at adding those once we get numbers from a contractor, if those numbers are looking good, just to get a little bit more of this knocked out if we can. But we're not targeting those in our initial design. We just don't have the time to do all that. So we're trying to put enough information in the packet that once we get a contractor on board, that we can add and or, hopefully not delete as we move forward. So I apologize for taking up time here in your public comment, but I just thought it's important that the residents are kept informed, and like I said before, moving forward, let's just make it an agenda item and we'll keep going. So one last thing, what we're shooting for right now is we're looking to advertise by May 1st for bids, and we're looking at about a week and a half period. So it'll be early in May when we receive our bids. I don't want to force the contractors' hands too fast. They're going to want to look at these roads too and drive them and not only see what we have on the plan. So I think it's important we give them adequate time to look at it, and we will immediately contact those major contractors again as soon as they have bids in their hands, so that if there's anything that they have concerns with, that we address it right away, and we try and make sure we get the best bang for our buck here moving forward. So that's kind of it, quick in a nutshell. And I understand there's other things on the agenda here, and I want to let everybody else have a chance to do public comments. So thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Brian. We'll have you on the agenda moving forward.
Mike Springer, 206 Eagles Nest Road. Just give you a brief report on the rec committee that was held prior to this meeting. First of all, both grants were submitted, both the Passport Grant and the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund Grant. We actually got one in 2 days before the deadline and the other one day before the deadline. That's a first for me and the three that I've been involved with. A lot of work went into all these grants from the rec committee and Mr. McCarthy. We had Larry Rasmussen from Oberstar present, well, let me back up one. Work on the warming building is going to resume next week. Shingling will be going on and hanging of drywall. So thanks to Mr. Wiegand. He's back in town. We can get back to work. We also had Larry Rasmussen from Oberstar present some potential work that could be done at Lions Field this summer. And looking at the situation at Lions Field, we need to do something this summer. We don't want this to jeopardize our passport application for the sidewalk, but we do want to do something about parking and cleaning up the area and making the area around the warming building usable and non-hazardous. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a special meeting. The rec committee will have a special meeting on Tuesday, April 28th at 5:30, and it will be just to work on the Lions Field rec plan and come back, or not rec plan, but the Lions Field development for this summer. And we would like to be on the agenda for the board following that, immediately following, I'm sorry, it's on May the 4th, which is a Monday. So we would like to be on that agenda. Iron Range Roll, we were very supportive of that last year. A report from them, from the task force, said we were the most amenable and also provided the most facilities and amenities than any other municipality did. So I'd like to continue that. So the Iron Range Roll will meet with the rec committee prior to your meeting on May 19th, and I would also ask that that be placed on the agenda, because someone from probably the YMCA Youth Reach and Rise program will be there, as well as a 40 Below member and myself. Two things that were added to the agenda tonight that I feel is that the rec committee has expressed concern about and want to make you aware of is that tomorrow night there's a public hearing for special use for a division of property that's currently in Commercial Forest Reserve or Commercial Forest Act. And if the rec committee's concerned about it. We feel it's going to be a very important meeting, and we would encourage board members or anyone else that's interested in the division of land and land use in our township to attend. As you know, I was a planning commissioner for 9 years. Spent a lot of time working on a master plan. Worked real hard on scenic residential, forest recreation, complete streets, and smart growth. And in my mind, the Planning Commission is extremely important commission in this township, and they make some very serious decisions. And land use, how we use the land that we have here is a very critical issue. So I'd encourage you to attend. Another thing, just kind of a heads up that the board, or I'm sorry, that the rec committee is considering applying for a Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund acquisition grant for 2016. And this is something that we've talked about for a while, and trying to look at land that would be good to hold in perpetuity for recreation for the public. And so we're going to move forward with that. I know one of the questions Mr. Johnson, as treasurer, is going to ask me is, where's the money coming from for the 25% match? But I think this would be an opportunity to work with the state of Michigan, because as you know, the state of Michigan is considering turning Little Presque Isle area into a state recreation area. And some of the properties that we're looking at to write a grant for, which would be the 40 or some acres that, I'm sorry, it may actually be about 160 acres that holds Wetmore Pond, and the 40 below that holds Lily Pond. Two areas that are very popular, just very popular, and we'd like to preserve those. The parcel that is being considered tomorrow night is all part of the Section 31, where you have Hogs Back to the north, and this particular 155-acre parcel is in the southwest corner of 31. And it's being considered for division into 5 parcels, which is below the minimum for resource production. So it should be an interesting meeting, and I would encourage you to attend. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else wish to address the board?
Matt Bordage, 2042 Huron Street, and I am requesting time to speak under agenda 9A.
Good evening. John DePietro, 1803 Presque Isle, Marquette. Also Marquette County Commissioner, District 1. I don't get a pleasure to come to these meetings very much because our meetings at the same time as what other townships are. So anyways, today we had the day off, and I thought it'd be a good time for me to address some issues that we as county board members are addressing, trying to work with the townships and that. And so, we went down to Lansing March 30, 31st, and April 1st for the MAC conference, which is the Michigan Association of Counties. And we had the chance to meet with the governor's staff of Valerie Grader, which most of you know. And we had a chance, we asked for a half hour, she gave us an hour. And we addressed big box, dark store issues and the energy crisis, the mining issues, stuff like that. So anyways, she was on the same page with us. She understood what we were going through and stuff like that. So anyways, it was good to meet with her and address our concerns. And then we went back to the seminars, and we had a chance to Jerry Corkin, the county chairman, and our county administrator, Scott Erbish, and I had gone to Lansing on this trip together. And one of the things that we had a chance to do was visit with Jack Van Couvering. Did the presentation. Everybody knows Jack for what he's doing with the townships and that, working with them on dark store issues. He had a presentation for 1 hour, and we could have stayed there for 2 more hours because there were so many township representatives throughout the state of Michigan that are going through the same thing that we're going through in Marquette County, the Upper Peninsula, and south of the Mackinac Bridge. So everybody's getting beat up by this issue, and it's very costly. And during a question and answer, a lot of people were concerned, hoping that they could get reimbursed after paying their penalties and stuff like that. And it's very possible if you believe in Easter Bunny. Other than that, I wouldn't count on it, but Jack laid it on the line. He was very truthful, and he knows the situation. So, but anyways, yeah, we had, after the seminar, Scott Erbish and I and Jerry Corkin had a chance to sit down and spend an hour with him just going over issues. So that was very educational, and he helped us very much with different things. But this Michigan Tax Tribune thing is in the hands of our legislatures in Lansing, and it's hard for them to get the rest of the people down in Lansing to put their arms around this thing. Now they're just starting to feel the heat from their constituents on these issues. So that's one of the things that I was glad that everybody had a chance to address this big issue. So we aren't here by ourselves. This is a big issue right through the state of Michigan. And also, Thursday, April 9th, got a chance to go to Peter White Public Library for the Michigan Tax Tribune information session. And the one we were really looking for was Stephen Lasher. He's the chairman of the Michigan Tax Tribune, but apparently he got fogged in south of the bridge and couldn't make it to this session. But anyways, they had Bruce Klausner, that's expertise, Jackie Lankins, that's also expertise in this, John Kivala, Marty Piante, and Dennis Limata, who you all know here. And he, I tell you, when you talk about this stuff, he gets very passionate about it. But anyways, it was a full house. They didn't expect that many people to show up at the Peter White Public Library for this, but it was very, very educational. And they had set up for about 70 people, and then the word on the street was that Dennis Limata was going to show up. They had to get like 40 more chairs. The custodians were hustling to get more chairs there. But anyways, it was backed right to the doors, and I was glad everybody had a chance to show up to do what they did. So, but anyways, that's one of the things I want to let everybody know, that we are working behind the scenes trying to help the township and, you know, get Jack and them to stay on this thing, and also our representatives. So if you get a chance, don't hesitate about calling our reps and telling them your concerns. This is very important. They have to keep it on the radar and get everybody else to buy into it. So thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Appreciate the comments. Anyone else wishing to address the board this evening? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Go to board member comment. Those members of the board wishing to make comment may do so at this time. Lynn, I'm going to start down there with you.
The planning meeting was what Mike Springer was talking about. That'll be tomorrow night, and the library meeting will be next Wednesday also. I can talk later about my deer. I've had enough people ask, but I'll give you the 1-minute scenario at the end of the meeting.
Diana?
Nothing at this time.
Ernie?
I attended the Marquette Township Business Association today, and it's interesting. They're moving ahead, and they're trying to look at putting flowers where it is around our welcome signs over by the telephone company and over by Enterprise and that. And they're looking to do that in this year and restain them if necessary. And they asked if the township had any funds available to help them somewhat in the signs and the plantings. And I know we have some in the budget, so I'm going to let them know, and they'll be contacting whoever at this point in time, and that would go from there. And that. So, but that was the biggest thing. The other question was raised on the one up by the AT&T building. It's difficult for them to get up and water the plants up there. The other one by the Enterprise, they're able to do it relatively easy. They're wondering if something could be worked out with our staff here to come up and water that once in a while, and that too. So I said I'd bring it up. It'd be something that they'd have to work through and see what can be done in that too. So okay, that's it. Well, one other thing, one of the main thing. They got a new booklet coming out on the township, different activities in the township and the businesses and that, and they're putting a history of the township in it, and they're looking for additional information. So if anyone's got some historical data that they'd like to put in there, get a hold of me or someone from the business association, and they'll try and write it up and get it into the booklet.
Thanks, Ernie. Sorry.
Just a couple election dates coming up. May 2nd, which is a Saturday, I'll be in the Township Hall from noon to 2 to take or receive or to give out any absentee ballots that are that you want to either give or receive at the May election that following Tuesday. Polls will be open from 7 in the morning to 8 at night. And for the board's information, anything that goes on the August primary election, any language has to be into the county by May 12th. So if we're going to go that route, May 12th is the drop dead deadline for that. And with the August election, I'll put it on the next agenda, we will have to move our meeting date from that Tuesday. Because when we made our meeting schedule, that August election was not on there at the time. So we can blame Commissioner DePietro and the county for that, but that's all I have.
Thanks, Randy. Dan?
No, nothing this time.
Pete?
I had a phone call before I come up here from my neighbor. It's about yard waste collection. I mentioned, we were talking to Randy the other day, and he said he's working on it, but I just told him, bringing his comments up, they don't like the location, it's very inconvenient, the time of the day and the location of it, it's not gonna work out. So, like I told him Randy was working on it, and, I mean, the time you put your leaves and that in your trailer and you start driving down the highway, the time you get to the collection, you won't have anything in your trailer. But the branches are, now we start picking up branches and that's gonna be, because the time you have to be up there, that, we have to find something different, because that's not gonna work out for our residents. Outside, when you're cleaning up alongside the road and that, if you are doing that, in vacant lots, just be careful of the waste, of the meth lab waste. It's getting very bad out there, so be careful what you pick up, and if you see anything, call the sheriff's department or anyone. Question on sweeping the safety strip, also the road sweeping, and the traffic light at Brickyard intersection, when will that be put up? So Mr. Gerard could address that maybe after in his report.
Thanks, Pete. Pete stole my thunder. The only comment I was going to make is we understand that it is a inconvenience for us to have moved especially the yard waste drop-off, because it was convenient 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, we're trying to get you used to the fact that that property is going to be private business, is changing hands. We cannot use it there. We wanted to make sure that we were maintaining it, at least for the short term. It is an additional 4 miles down 492, I realize, but it is only 4 miles. And it provides, right now, it's when their hours are open, so I realize that it's a lot of time when folks are working, and that makes it a hardship of being able to drop off yard waste. We continue to study it. I had the conversation with Superintendent Page yesterday morning. Randy is well aware of it and is looking for additional drop-off areas. Believe it or not, most people don't want it in their lot next to their house for obvious reasons, because people go and dump their leaves there and then it would blow into your yard. So we have to find an area that's convenient, that still has good traffic control. You can get in and out. The township is well aware of it. In the short term, North Country Disposal down 492 to Eagle Mills Road is the only available drop-off area. We'll update that as soon as we can. I know a lot of folks told me that they weren't aware of it. The signs keep getting just pushed over back there. When folks get there, they just knock the signs over and dump. However, you should be aware that if the sheriff department sees you there dropping off, you will be ticketed, so you've been forewarned. We will continue to work on it. We'll get the information out to the township as soon as we have an alternate location. If there's nothing else, we'll close board member comment. There is no unfinished business this evening. And we're going to move to new business. Agenda item number 9A, consider the fire chief appointment. Mr. Bordage, you reserve time to speak. Bordage, I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna be quick. I guess the one thing I ask of the board before you guys go ahead and make your decision tonight, ask yourself if you have any unanswered questions on this whole issue with Chief Sims, because I'm on the fire department and I have plenty of unanswered questions that nobody's been able to answer for me. And nobody's come to any of my meetings and explained anything to us. So, sorry, I'm a little emotional on this whole thing, and I think rightly so. The man spent 39 years serving the taxpayers and the residents of this township, and I don't think he got a fair shake. Them are my personal opinions, and so just make sure that there are no unanswered questions in your guys' head before you vote. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. You do have a transmittal in your packet from me. Rather than read through the entire two-page thing, all of the attributes for a fire chief came from the Michigan Townships Association book that you all have a copy of, called On-Call Fire Departments, and the township's responsibilities in managing the on-call fire department. I listed all the attributes out there according to the Michigan Townships Association, and then all of those, everything that I took was pulled directly from that book. And then the only comments I will make is that while this by no means is meant to be an exhaustive listing, I believe it does provide the insight into the decision-making process for this critical leadership position. I think that Ron DeMars, who is the person I'm putting forth to fill the vacant fire chief's position, as you know, is currently our full-time fire marshal. He is the former fire chief for Marquette Township and has exhibited all the qualifications required from the list for the Michigan Townships Association. In addition, he holds the following credentials pertinent to this position: firefighter 1 and 2, fire officer 1 and 2, company officer, incident command systems, hazmat first responder. He's got the instructor certifications, the initial company tactical operations for community fire protection, master planning, fire protection systems for emergency operations, and that's just a short list. I actually, if you want it, I have the full list that was printed off from the website if you're interested in seeing it. He's a state of Michigan certified instructor as well, which I believe is important to the township, especially in light of the township board's renewed commitment to providing our members with additional training opportunities as available. I have discussed this appointment with Ron. He has agreed to serve the community in this endeavor and to assist us in making the transition to a new leadership team. He is available. I asked him to be here this evening, so he will be available should you have any questions for him. And that's it from my standpoint. I'm putting out Ron DeMars as my supervisor appointment for fire chief. Board member comment. Dan?
Okay, I want to read it because, make sure I got it right. I would feel remiss if I didn't comment prior to the vote of this. I have been a firefighter for 29 years in the township. In my career, I've had an opportunity to observe and be mentored by Chief Sims. In his 39-year history with the township, he has always put the needs of the township first. He has brought along many firefighters who have gone on to become full-time employees with other departments. Bob has unselfishly spent hours above and beyond to make the fire department what it is today. I've heard many times members of this board praise the fire department and its ability and dedication. This praise would not be given without the leadership of the chief. Bob's concerns for the department's budget and his long-range planning has allowed the township to purchase very expensive equipment without hampering the department funds. Bob has set the benchmark for his volunteerism and dedication for the township over the last 39 years that would be hard to match. As a former firefighter and present board member, I feel that allowing politics and personal agendas to interfere with the operation of a department only leads to a breakdown of morale and weakens the efficiency and goals of the organization. Firefighters look out for each other and depend on each other to protect their lives. At this time, I'd like to thank Bob for his years of service and his friendship. If I was to approve any nomination to fire chief, it would mean that I agree with your dismissal of Bob. Therefore, I will vote no for any nomination that is presented to the board. Thank you.
Board member comment. Lynn?
From what I understand from MTA, the Chief Sims was appointed by the board at the time. So unless this board changed that procedure in the last few years, this board decides what happens to him and his successor. I don't know that that's been addressed. It's frustrating to have the Open Meetings Act restrict a lot of what community boards do. And although there's the protection there for openness, it also ties our hands when we want to have a discussion about something. So that's the frustrating part about where we are now. Because until the packet came out, and I was pretty busy this weekend, so I didn't get to it till yesterday. I didn't know anything about this. And that's the frustrating part, too. I think this has to be handled, in my mind. Again, I look at it from a business perspective, but it's not really that different. If we're going to hire someone for a very important department for managing trained, licensed employees, and many of them, I think it should go through the same routine that you would if you were hiring anybody. Put an ad in the paper, put it in on our website, And this has nothing to do with Ron's abilities or his training or anything. It has nothing to do with Ron. This is about the position, and I've said that before. When we hire somebody, we have to hire the position. It's not the person. But I think we need to know whether there are other applicants. I think, does temporary Chief Shanahan have an interest in this? Has he interviewed? Has anybody from the outside, Marquette or anywhere else, been approached, or has anyone applied, or has this been advertised? I think that's all important when you're talking about a position of this stature. And I don't think it's appropriate to just take an appointment for this important position and just say, yes, let's just do this. That's all I have to say.
Diana?
I'm a little confused as a board member because, like, I didn't know this was gonna happen either. And, it's just frustrating and confusing not knowing, like, as a board, we're supposed to be transparent, and I don't feel that we were being transparent at the time of this decision. I think as a board, we should have all voted on it. That's just my opinion. But it's confusing and a little frustrating.
Ernie?
Well, my big concern is that when you indicated you appointed it and following the MCL 42.13, which is true, it does say the supervisor. But reading the whole thing, supervisor has that authority only if the board gives them that authority. This board has not provided that authority. Now, if you go back in history, maybe so, but this board has not gone that way. And I think that is a stumbling block as far as I'm concerned. Another concern I have, just by putting a name forward, this gentleman has already a full-time position in the township. How is this all going to be put together in that? How is it going to be working out? Because the fire department chief is a part-time, non-benefit position. So those are things that have to be addressed from my side as a treasurer and financial end of it and that. So those are the things I have to address, and until those things are resolved, I can't support this and that. So this is where I go at this point in time.
Clerk Jari?
No comment on this time.
Pete?
Under the circumstance, we can't discuss some of that because, you know, we're all aware of some of it, but we can't say much about it, so. I prefer not to make any comments unless we want to go deep into it, and we can't do that, so.
The agenda item before you has nothing to do with the dismissal of the former chief. It only has to do with the appointment. Lynn, I'll address your concerns first. Number one, the township board has no role in personnel unless it goes to a step 4 grievance. They don't determine any employees, whether they're disciplinary process. They have no role in it whatsoever, and it's done for a reason so that it isn't politicized. So therefore, it didn't come to the board because there was no reason for it to come to the board, no legal reason. In fact, it couldn't come to the board legally because there's just no precedence for it to come to the board to ask you about anything that had occurred with the former fire chief as far as disciplinary process goes.
No, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about this.
And this determination, again, Ernie, general law townships, the supervisor can appoint if the board gives him that approval. In charter townships, the supervisor has the authority to appoint the fire chief, no different than the planning commission members, zoning board of appeals, et cetera, unless I give up that authority in writing. And I have not done so. I intend to make that appointment just like I make the other appointments. And I didn't go on this alone. This was discussed with Rob Thal, who, as you all know, is Michigan Township Association's attorney, who has vetted every step of this process, as well as our own civil counsel, Roger Zappa, who is here this evening, and our labor counsel, Aaron Graves. who is not here this evening. The instance leading up to this is a personnel matter that the township is not going to discuss in public, no different than we wouldn't discuss any other personnel matter in public, because there are a couple things. Number one, you don't open up someone's personnel file and make that public information. It's illegal, and we're not going to go there. If an employee wants to go out and share their information as they see it with someone, that's up to them, but it won't come officially from this township in any way, shape, or form, and it will not be discussed in public. If I wanted to run an ad to find if somebody wanted to be our on-call fire chief, I don't imagine I'm going to get anyone with qualifications that are better than Ron DeMars, so I'm not sure why I would want to run an ad when I already know what this guy brings to the table. I know his management skills, I know his firefighting skills, I know his administrative and command skills. There is no unknown quantity with Ron DeMars. He served this township ably for many years, and in fact, he was our fire chief previously. You can only look at the list of some of the things that I put out for Ron, and I can't say enough about his desire to provide professional fire protection and education to the residents and business owners of this community. So I don't understand where your concerns lie in trying to run an ad. I have no intention of running an ad. It's my appointment. I intend to make that appointment. The only decision before you guys this evening is whether or not you'll support my appointment with Fire Marshal DeMars moving forward as our fire chief. Somebody will make the motion and we'll put it to a vote. If it doesn't prevail, then I don't have someone in my Plan B department. We'll revisit it in 2 weeks at the next board meeting, but I will then put forth Ron DeMars again, because that's how important I think it is that we have continuity in the department. I know that the department's been turned on its head for the last 4 months. I know how tough it's been. Hats off to Assistant Chief Dan Shanahan, because he's been on the firing line of this, and he hasn't been able to provide any information to the members of the department. Like you heard, they would love to hear it. We can't share that information. As much as I would like to share some of it, it's just the township's policy that we don't discuss it for legal reasons, and even if it wasn't legal reasons, we're not going to discuss someone's personnel file openly in public. We'll provide information that we can legally provide once it's been vetted by legal counsel, but that's it. Anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Ron DeMars as fire chief.
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Board member discussion. Dan?
I believe we have a problem, because in going back, I went through the personnel manual with the job description for the fire chief that the Marquette Township paid the MML in September of 2007 to create, and this is in our personnel manual, and it says under 2, supervision received / given, the fire chief is appointed by the township board with consideration given to the recommendation of the fire department and serves at the discretion of the township board. That seems to be in contrast to what you just said.
And you cannot, I took that, Dan, and thanks for bringing it up. I did take it, and I submitted that to legal counsel with the MTA, and said that according to MCL 42.13, that I've never given up in writing my authority to appoint, and it doesn't matter what you put in policy, you can't supersede my statutory rights and responsibilities unless I grant that in writing, which I have not done. Other comment? Lynn?
Well, that's all fine and dandy, but we still don't have, I mean, that's an impasse. That's just ridiculous to say that basically this is your decision, you're going to keep bringing it up until we agree with you, which is not correct. It's not right. So my issue is that this hasn't been vetted at all. We haven't even talked about it. We haven't looked at any candidates. We haven't given our opinion, we don't know how this is going to play out. We don't know, the gentleman was going to retire, how many years now? And now everything is upside down. We have no answers as to how he's going to do this. We're going to have a chief or not, or we're going to have a marshal or not. Is Rob going to come forth and be the chief? Or, I mean, how can you just say this is the way it's going to be? You're one of 7.
I'm not saying that's the way it's going to be. That's up to me to make the appointment, Lynn, and I'm going to continue to make the appointment that I think is in the best interest of this township. If you have concerns about how Ron would be a fire chief, he's right here. I'll bring him up to the podium. Please ask him those questions.
I've already talked to him today. I'm the only board member that did call him. And this is not against Ron. This has nothing to do with his qualifications or anything. This is the way this is being handled, and I think it's wrong. Whether I want him as chief or not doesn't matter. It's how it's being conducted.
I'm sorry, but this is the statutory way it is conducted.
No.
I get to make the appointment, Lynn.
You just said that you were going to continue to do this, and that's not.
And I probably
That's
will.
not right. We have to have an option. We have to have other options brought before us.
You do. You can vote no every time it comes up.
And then continue to tie the fire department's hands. That's
If
no
that's
way to
what the
run a
board
department.
chooses to do. I can't make that decision for you. The only thing I can do is make my decision based on what I think is the best way for the department to move forward. And you have to make your own decision.
So tying everybody's hands until we capitulate is in the best interest
You
of
never have
anybody?
to capitulate it. You never have to vote in his favor.
So I'd like to see some more candidates. I'd like to have somebody, I'd like to see if Shanahan would like to do it, or if one of the other people would like to do it.
But I
or if
have no
somebody's got
interest in
an
appointing
idea.
those people, Lynn. You have to understand that it's my appointment. If you want to make the appointment, run for supervisor, then you can interview as many candidates as you'd like.
Sorry, I just disagree with that. I don't think it's right. And I don't think that's what MTA intends, and I don't think that's what the state intends.
Ernie?
You keep referring to section 4213. The first sentence, the township board in each charter township shall have the power to provide for and establish and maintain a fire department and authorize the supervisor or the township superintendent, if one has appointed, to appoint, subject to the approval of the said board, a township fire chief and other firemen as may be required. It goes back to the second sentence, and authorizes. The township board has not authorized the supervisor to do it.
Read it again, Ernie. 42.13 doesn't say the township board authorizes. It says this statute authorizes the supervisor to make the appointment.
I'm reading, the township board in each charter township shall have the power to provide for and establish and maintain a fire department,
Correct.
and authorize the supervisor or the township superintendent, if one has been appointed, to appoint, subject to the approval of the said board. The
Correct.
township board shall have the power to establish and maintain and authorize the supervisor. That's the key words in it, in section 4213. I'm reading it right off.
And I'm going, and I understand it, Ernie, I sent it to MTA's legal counsel. I had the discussion with them on multiple occasions. Our own legal counsel's here, Roger. Have you, I don't know, I hate to throw something to you at the last second, but are you prepared to discuss what your opinion is of the Michigan compiled law?
Well, in fairness, I wasn't asked to review that issue. I was asked to review a couple of other issues, but I too printed off a copy of MCL 42.13 upon looking at the agenda today. And it does say that the township board in each charter township shall have the power to provide for and establish and maintain a fire department and authorize the supervisor to appoint, subject to the approval of the board, a township fire chief and other firefighters. Essentially, what I'm interpreting the MTA opinion to have said is that the township board has the initial authority by this statute to determine, are we going to have a fire department? Are we not going to have a fire department? That is a township board decision. If the township board decides that we are going to have a fire department, then the manner in which the fire department is determined is that the township supervisor essentially makes the appointments, subject to board approval. This is specifying the way that the fire department gets established and organized. So it is essentially a township supervisor appointment process, but it's also subject to board approval. Now, having said that, it is, as with many statutes, I'm not here to endorse whether that was a good way to make the process work. But that is essentially what the statute does indicate, and I guess that I'm understanding what the Michigan Township Association is reporting by this opinion. I haven't actually read the opinion or seen an opinion on that, but that is corroborated by the reading of the statute. As Trustee Durant indicates, that can be problematic depending on how we go about this, but that's what the statute is. The process is that once we decide we are going to have a fire department, and part of that decision is in many smaller rural townships, just by means of example, you could have a fire department that is joint between an adjoining village or with another township or 2 or 3 townships even. So the initial decision, that's what the township board is making, is to provide for and determine whether to have a fire department. And then once that decision is reached, this is the process that the firefighters are to be appointed, as the chief is, by the supervisor, but subject to board approval. And it's my understanding that in Marquette Township's situation, that we've tried to delegate that out a little bit more than some townships have done by allowing the fire department to actually participate in those, the interview process for firefighters, for example. And that's not mandated by statute, but it's also not prohibited by statute. So to that extent, over the years, traditionally, Marquette Township has tried to be more inclusive in that type of a process. But it still comes down to that the fire department only recommends, and the supervisor appoints, and the board either approves or disapproves, is essentially the process, once the decision to have a fire department has been authorized. That's my interpretation of the MTA opinion as has been related to me.
Thank you. Other board member comment? Ernie?
Moving in another direction, being the treasurer, talking about finances. Being that the individual has a full-time position already in the township, this is a part-time position of 10-plus hours a week at this point in time for X number of dollars with no benefits in that. How is this all going to play out in the long run in that? Is this going to be additional work, or is he going to give up the current position and go to the fire chief position, or put them together, or what? I don't know. Just appointing someone without having all the background, here again, I go back like Lynn on the business end, I had to put everything together when I made an appointment, how everything's going to be affected in that. Financially, there's a dollar amount for the chief. How is that going to play out? A chief having no benefits, there's no benefits. But this current position has benefits, and so how that's going to all play together, I don't know. So talking about as a financial point, these have not been discussed or even brought out at this point in time. So we don't know where that stands in that. So I can't move forward on this until those things at least come out too. So that's all.
It would take to rewrite the job description, and I think that will occur, but I'm not going to rewrite a job description and talk about where we're going to go unless Ron's getting appointed, because if he's not, it becomes a moot point. I think if you read your MTA on-call firefighter book, you'll find that it tells you as departments grow, they need to have a full-time chief becomes more critical the more you grow. I think that we're there. I think we should have a full-time chief, but right now it's a part-time position. Ron does a vast majority of the work as it is. I think that him being able to assimilate it, and it's not like I just decided today to appoint Ron and we'll figure it out. Ron and I have had long conversations about what this would look like as we move forward. Ron has some ideas about how he would like to restructure the department. I think that that's what you should do, take a department head and allow them to figure out what that looks like as you move forward. It's not gonna cost us more money, it's eliminating one position. We haven't even talked about what that looks like from a pay schedule, because it is a very minor amount that the stipend that the fire chief gets. I'll be happy to bring Ron up here and you can ask him the question on how he feels about it, but I think he's got some really good ideas on what that looks like moving forward.
Still looking financially. I don't write a job description after you hire someone. You lay it all out ahead of time, all the financial things, everything ahead of time before you hire someone. I don't care if you appoint them or hire them.
If I wrote a job description that said fire marshal / fire chief, that would kind of narrow down the candidate pool, wouldn't it?
Then you have to tie in dollar amounts and everything else at the same time. So you're putting everything together. You have to do all this prior to appointing or hiring someone. I don't know of any business that doesn't do this ahead of time. I couldn't go out and hire someone and say, I'm going to write the job description after I have them aboard here working to make them fit. No.
We have a job description, Ernie. We have a job description for fire marshal. We have a job description for fire chief. It's very simple to combine those two. In fact, incredibly simple. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
If you're going to combine them, then you lay out a new job description for that position. Otherwise, you got two positions you're talking about, the fire marshal and a fire chief. What's it going to be? Is he going to be a fire marshal or is he going to be a fire chief?
And I'm telling you, he's going to be the fire marshal / fire chief.
How is he going to do both of them? He's got a full-time job right now. How is he going to add in the fire chief responsibility?
Ron, would you mind stepping up to the podium for a minute?
I don't think he is the point. The point is this board has to come to the conclusions at this point in time.
Ron, how would you be able to handle fire marshal and fire chief at the same time?
Well, I'm currently doing the payroll arrangement with Dan, and the rest of it, as far as any ordering of equipment or doing some cost analysis, is not going to put an additional burden on the fire marshal position. So it's academic to me whether it's a fire marshal or a fire marshal / fire chief. My only desire is to see the department move forward, try to get some of this uncertainty that we've dealt with for the last 4 months behind us, so we can focus on our mission, which is to provide fire and EMS services to the township residents.
Other questions for Ron while he's at the podium? So Ron, if there's concern from Ernie about the money that the fire chief stipend goes, would you care to weigh in on what you think would happen there if we combine the two positions?
As far as I'm concerned, there's no monetary desire for me. It can be blended into my fire marshal positions that I do now, and I would just continue on as I do. The only difference would be I would be handling payroll and obviously purchasing and signing off on some of the invoicing for the fire department. I'm not looking for an additional stipend.
Thank you.
I still think we need a job description laying out just what Ron said, all the way down the line, financial and everything, so we know what to do, so we can go into the actual board minutes as to what's going on in that too, so, rather than after the fact.
Manager Gerard, as the personnel director in charge of developing the job descriptions, would you care to weigh in?
Well, Supervisor Limit, as you've said, the job descriptions already exist. Combining the two job descriptions is very minimal. You're talking about somebody who already served as the chief, knows the job in and out, has a history with the department. There's no financial impact, would not affect benefits, would not affect pay. So I don't see what concern or question the treasurer would have.
Thank you. Lynn?
When I visited with Ron today, I had quite a few questions for him, and I liked what he said. I think it's been hard on Supervisor Limata the last few months, dealing with what he's had to deal with. He's a type of a guy that you give him a problem and he solves it and he goes to the next thing. He's used to working that way. He should know this board better than that. We don't usually take things at face value. And I think the reception that this board would have given him tonight would have been better had this been laid out a little more clearly. I would have expected, as Manager Gerard usually does, some kind of a soliloquy on how we saw this playing out. And that's what frustrated me, because I didn't know when I came in here how I was going to vote on this. And when it got thrown into my face, I didn't appreciate that as a board member. That's where I went back with the idea of, vetting it better, putting an ad in, doing some kind of process, up to and including making a recommendation of how that department would change. That's part of the whole vetting process that you do when you hire somebody or you promote them. You don't just say, hey, I think this person should do it. I was concerned as to the impact that it would have on the employees. Now, as an employer, I don't hire or promote based on what I think my employees want. But if there's somebody that I think can do the job, the employees are going to have to put up with it. That's just the way it works in business. So there's a lot to be said for that. If we feel that Ron can jump in and take over and do it, fine. That's what we think. But I think the process was handled poorly. And I don't know if there's a way to turn around and step back, or if we just want to forget this till next week, or what. I don't really know how to vote right now.
Any final comments? Pete?
Lynn, I guess Lynn, Ernie, and Diana, you were not aware of any of this before tonight? You did not, that was supposed to have been on the agenda a week or a couple weeks ago? So you were not aware of anything that happened?
No, not till I got my packet. Well, I read it yesterday.
It's hard for me to believe that.
Who do we get the information from?
No other comments? We have a motion and a second. I do have one comment, and that's, Lynn, I vetted the process. I want you to know that. I make very careful, fact-based decisions on everything I do. This was no different. I spent many hours talking with Ron about what it looks like and how we move forward from the process 4 months ago when we first had a vacancy until it was confirmed vacancy a few weeks ago and knew that we had to move forward. I did talk with Assistant Chief Shanahan before I made my decision as well. I'm sure that we have a lot of really good members of our fire department who could perform admirably as a fire chief, but I don't think we have any who have the qualifications and the background of Ron DeMars. I think that bringing in somebody from the outside would be a mistake. I know that the department's been turned on its head for 4 months. And so I made my decision based on what's the best thing to move forward. No matter what you do, there's going to be some unhappy folks. That's just how it works. No one has all of the facts because we're not going to divulge them publicly. If board members have concerns, they can call me. They could have called me when they saw the packet and asked me specifics about my appointment. I would have been happy to share those, but I didn't hear from anyone. Again, Ron is absolutely the best candidate we have in this township. Not only has he given us many years of fantastic service, but again, with our renewed focus on training, this guy is a state certified instructor. He can bring our department to the next level. I know he's well respected in the community, and he's well respected in the firefighter community. He is the face of Marquette Township Fire Department as our full-time employee for the past many years. When people think of Marquette Township Fire Department during the day, from business inspections and just a general day-to-day contact, they think of Ron and Rob. Ron has done just such a fantastic job. I'm surprised that anybody here, has a question about him being able to move this department forward. But that's your right, and I did do my vetting process. I did look at the candidates that I had available. I don't believe an outside candidate is the appropriate answer, and Ron is the absolutely 110% best candidate that we have in the department to lead this forward, and that's why he was put forward. We have a motion and a second on the table. If there's no other comment, we'll bring it to a vote. The motion is to appoint Ron DeMars as the fire chief / fire marshal moving forward. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
No.
Got it?
I believe it failed 4-3.
Okay. Ernie?
Just one comment. There's nothing against Ron, it's just that I need, for my mind, a job description and everything to go along with it before I can move forward, because that ties into the township personnel manual and everything, so we know where we're going. And right now, we have 2 job descriptions, we need to put them together as one. So that's what I'm looking at right now.
Ron, I'd like to thank you for coming tonight and all the help that you've given us over the last 4 months. Same with Dan Shanahan. Thanks for all your help and what you've done over the last 4 months. Our fire chief's position will remain vacant until I bring out the next appointment at some future date. I'm hoping, Ron, that you will continue to be interested in serving the department as our fire chief moving forward. Next item on our agenda is consider vehicle replacement for Building and Grounds Department.
Dennis, I'd just like to ask if we can get some more information, if this is going to be on the next agenda. I'd like more information on how you or the manager feels that this position would be structured and what it would involve, whether it's financially or as far as the department goes.
You have a transmittal in your packet dated April 16th, 2015 from Manager Gerard. I'm requesting authorization to replace the 1998 Ford Ranger four-wheel drive pickup truck that was purchased used in April 2011. He goes on to say that the truck is pretty much junk and has a disposal value of $650, I believe, somewhere in there. He's requesting that we allow him to declare that vehicle surplus and get rid of it and move forward with the budgeted item to purchase a new used vehicle for the Building and Grounds Department, 2007 full-size four-wheel drive Chevrolet Silverado. Manager Gerard?
It pretty much summarizes it. Basically, what we're referring to is the small purple Ranger pickup truck that the Building and Grounds Department utilizes. It currently is not in service. It's not in service because 2 of the 6 cylinders have failed. It needs brake work, and the body has rusted to the point where it no longer supports the box, basically, the truck box. Expected repairs far exceed the value. As Supervisor Lehman mentioned, it has 152,600 miles on it. The street value, based on NADA book guides, in average condition is $650 for that particular truck, equipped as it is. I am requesting the authority to replace that truck. We have located locally here with a local dealer, used 2007 Chevrolet Silverado half-ton four-wheel drive full-size pickup truck, which will serve the department better, for a total of $14,875, which I do have in the budget. As you'll recall, in the 2014 budget, we set aside $15,000 for such a replacement, recognizing at that time that the 98 Ranger had a relatively short remaining lifespan. It has now surpassed that. So that is my request. My request is that the board authorize declaring that truck surplus and scrapping it or disposing of it and replacing it with 2007 Silverado.
Somebody care to make a motion?
So moved.
Or,
Motion and support. Pete, comment?
No comment. I think it's a good thing to do.
Lynn?
I was concerned about replacing a used car with a used car or a truck. But I made some calls, talked to my favorite mechanic, and he said that this would have some pretty good life left on it. It looks like it was well taken care of. They went through all his oil changes and all his stuff. So I don't have a problem with this.
Yeah, we have thoroughly vetted it. We've gone through, obtained Carfax, looked at the three prior owners, all private owners. It was not used corporately or for business purposes. We think it'll serve the purpose very well. The price range for that vintage of truck that with the mileage on it and configured as it is between $14,000 and $17,000 based on NADA guides. The average retail price is a little over $15,000, so we negotiated that down to $14,800.
Ernie?
Only question I have, do they need that big a vehicle in that?
Actually, it will serve their purposes better. The Ranger was a little small. We couldn't put some of the equipment in the back of it, and it basically did not have the carrying capacity for some of the things that we're doing at Lions Field and some of the other repair work that we're doing.
When I looked at it, I said, that's awful big, and they got that vehicle that we just purchased last year. How is that going to supplement that vehicle that we do have in there?
Well, the truck that you're referring to, the plow truck and dump truck, is a larger vehicle. That's a 3,500. So that's not something we would want to use every day for their running around back and forth on the various projects that they use. Mainly what they're doing is they're moving lawnmowers, snow blowers, and things such as that in the various seasons, back and forth between the various buildings and the Lions Field. So actually, the 6.5-foot box, bigger box, actually serves their purposes better.
I was looking here, do they have the, what do they call it in the back, the covering in the back?
Bed liner?
Bed liner.
There is a bed liner in it.
You have to get the ramps if you start moving lawnmowers and everything else around?
We have the ramps. Yeah, the ramps are add-on ramps. It doesn't matter what size your truck is, they're individual ramps.
Okay.
Two separate ramps.
Other comment? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second to authorize the manager to declare the 98 Ranger as surplus and to execute a purchase agreement for $14,875 for the 2007 Chevy Silverado. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Next item on your agenda is manager's report. Manager Gerard.
You do have a printed report. There really was not a lot to report. In this one, we basically on the local roads rehab project, you had a presentation earlier this evening from Brian Savalainen in terms of giving you the update on where they're at. They are moving relatively rapidly. I do expect to see this back before you at your second meeting in May for a decision on your part in terms of good costs in front of you so you can decide whether you're going to go forward with the project or if we want to go back to the voters in August. And as Clerk Rattari mentioned, we have a relatively quickly approaching deadline if that's what we wish to do in terms of getting language on for the August ballot. The MGT cost studies, they were back with their preliminary report for staff to review. I do expect that to be back for your meeting on May 5th, at least in draft format for you to take a look at, the 3 studies that are being done. As you recall, there was a fee study. They were reviewing the fee study. They were doing a cost allocation plan, and they were doing a service allocation plan. So they have the 3 plans that are coming back for your consideration prior to getting into the 2016 budget, which should be starting in early June. Corridor Committee, you've got the minutes, and the ZBA did approve the most recent request that was before them. It was a dimensional variance that was approved. It was reported at your last meeting. A couple of things that came up during discussion, public comment or board member comments. The Brickyard light, as you saw in the newspaper, it is going forward. MDOT will be installing that light at Brickyard here very quickly. They're out sweeping right now. I think as soon as they finish the sweeping on the highway, they'll be putting that light in. There were two contingencies with that, and one of those was the construction of what's euphemistically referred to as a pork chop, which is the barrier similar to what's in front of Super One and Taco Bell, to be installed at the Lowe's GFS driveway, so that will limit you to a right turn only, no left turning out of that driveway any longer. Once that is installed, completed, the property owner is doing that. Once that's completed, the light will then be installed. That light will be classed as a temporary light for up to 2 years. The reason it's being classed as a temporary light is because in 2019, there's already a funded project to expand the boulevard segment, which is what is out here with the median in between, beyond Walmart, almost all the way to the Negaunee Township line. That will include Michigan lefts. So your traffic coming out of there will be directed to the right, either to the traffic light or to a Michigan left to come back to the east. So that should alleviate our traffic issues out in that area. The other thing was the brush and yard waste options. We understand that it's problematic for the residents. It certainly is. Part of the construction of this facility and the fire department was contingent upon the sale of the former properties to offset the loan, so we could pay these off within that 7-year time frame that we were looking at. The board does have some options that although that purchase agreement is signed, it does not go into effect until May 1st for the deadline on it. The board does have the ability to consider possibly modifying that for a lower sale price. I'm not necessarily recommending that, but we are having great difficulty finding another option that would not be an increased cost to the residents. One of the things that's been talked about between myself and Superintendent Page is doing what the city does, basically, operating a spring and fall brush pickup, basically, in a fixed time frame, twice a year. But that's going to increase cost. It's going to increase cost of the service because we don't currently have that service with North Country for a pickup. So we are looking at options. The places that we've looked at so far either are about to be developed, they either have DEQ issues or they have traffic issues. Our property, for instance, was one of the first ones that was looked at down off of Grove Street. It's at a terrible location. South Vanderboom comes in there. There's the blind curve coming off the golf course. Speed limit increases. It would not be a reasonable location to have people trying to get in and out of. So we are looking at that, and we ask the residents to bear with us. We are trying to come up with a resolution for that. Right now, I realize there are some issues with the North Country site, the new site that was just opened. Also, residents need to remember that the county landfill will take yard waste, brush with no charge, and they're open almost continuously. They do have a schedule, so that's an option as well in the interim. A little further down 492. I'm sorry, 492. The question of pathways, so Trustee LaRue raised the pathways. We did clean those yesterday, as a matter of fact. The Werner pathway on Werner Street and the pathway on 492 were both swept yesterday by building and ground staff. They have also been, right now we're kind of in that lean time between seasons for the same reason we're not currently working on the warming building. Much of our other work with the Lions Field and some of the other places are basically waiting the end of snow and the end of freezing and the end of rain. So in the interim, building and ground staff has been going out into the neighborhoods doing cleanup. So you may have seen them, or residents may have mentioned it, but they've been cleaning up in the neighborhoods as well, picking up trash and that now that the snow is melting. And also, as Trustee LaRue mentioned, there is a caution to be aware of now that the snowbanks are melting, is that they are, as you've seen in the news recently, they are discovering now dump sites for folks that are engaged in cooking meth. So if you see particularly Gatorade bottles or similar type bottle like that with tubes coming out of them, don't touch them. Notify either the fire department or the sheriff's department of the location, and they'll be taken care of. They are hazardous materials. Let's see, the other item that we have accomplished, building and ground staff have gone through, they've done 2 sweeps now through the corridor picking up debris as the snow's melted, so we're trying to keep on track of that as well, on top of that. Treasurer Johnson mentioned the The township sign by AT&T, that is not a township sign. I think that belongs to Rotary. The
We
one,
have a sign up there in that area.
yeah, the one that we have
Farther up,
is
yeah.
further up. Yeah,
Further
yeah,
up.
and that is
That's
that
the only
is one.
building I could think of at the time.
Okay, it's basically it's up across from where the old Power Sports
Yeah.
used to
Yeah,
be.
towards Midway.
And- Yeah, towards Midway, and
came
and we
close.
we do have some money. Yeah, we do have some money set aside.
The one farthest east.
Yeah, we do have some money set aside to assist with that, so I'll get in touch with, if you'll let me know who the contact is,
I will
I'll
do
get in
that.
touch with them. And we do need to potentially look at that sign by AT&T, because it's not reflective any longer of what it actually represents. So
I-
we need to take a look at that. Let's see, anything else?
Kiwanis who put that up.
Was it Kiwanis? Okay.
I did.
Neighbors clean up brush yard. I believe that's all that I had, that I would do follow-up, unless there are any questions.
Go ahead, Dan.
I just have I could be wrong, but somebody mentioned that Chocolate Township, Nagani City, and Ishmael City met last week concerning a water authority. Do you know anything about that, or?
Yeah, that is
We
the one.
invited to that, and, or?
Well, they were meeting among themselves, but that is the group that we've been meeting with, and I have put together a draft agreement, authority agreement. The discussion is more along the lines of whether they want to form an authority or whether they want to just join themselves and not really have an authority, have an interlocal agreement, which we would certainly be willing to be party to an interlocal agreement as well. Mhm.
Other questions for manager? Ernie?
Have we got summer help for the Lions Field and for other activities around here?
Yes, there were actually two positions. There was the three-quarter time position that was approved in the 2014 budget that we've been utilizing basically for covering some of our events that are going on in the community center. We used some of that money for the wintertime coverage at the ice rink with the individual that we had hired. We just, as of Monday, put that position on regular for the summer now, so they're in the process of being outfitted, and so we'll have the two regular full-time positions as well as the three-quarter time position now to allocate for some of the activities going on in summertime. It's going to be a busy summer. Baseball season already started last Thursday, so there'll be a lot of work on the field. There'll be some assistance needed with the development of the remaining part of Lions Field around the ice rink area, as well as the kiddie park. When once the ground thaws out fully and we can remove the old equipment that's there now, the new equipment is waiting to be delivered. So we'll be covering all of that. The second position is the one that was approved this year, 2015, in Public Works for their technician position. Kirk and I have gone through that. When he got back from vacation, we pulled that file back out. We had not as much response as we had hoped for, but there are two candidates that Kirk is going to schedule interviews with, and I expect those will be either scheduled this week, probably to occur within the next week or two.
I think the other thing I have on our old buildings over
Yes.
there, and the land over there, and that, we have I thought it was April 1st, but I've been corrected, it's May 1st.
Yeah, it was a 90-day extension.
Yeah, February, March, April.
So we're coming up to that very quickly in that.
We are. I did have conversation with the purchaser earlier this week, in fact, on Monday, and we did discuss as one of the potential options breaking off the 5-acre property purchase, going forward right now with the two buildings and getting those out to allow us to continue to utilize that property for our brush and leaves. So she is considering that. It's not a good idea. I don't really recommend that. But that's one option that we wanted to potentially keep open for a year or two to go forward with the buildings right now and do a land contract for 2 years, giving us the use of that property for that 2-year time frame till we come up with a solution.
I think at the first meeting in May, we're going to have to make a decision one way or another on that. Because we've actually provided this entity with a tremendous amount of time in that, and we really don't hear anything from them unless we call them, and I don't think that's the way to do business in that, too.
We've had some continuing discussion back and forth. And it has taken a little longer because there were some other extenuating circumstances that came up. I've been talking with the financial entity that is processing the 3 separate financing packages for all of the things that needed to be done. They are moving forward with the financing. 2 have been completed, and they're working on the last one now, which is our purchase. One other comment that I want to make that Trustee LaRue just reminded me is the Lions Field area where Erie Street was abandoned, that is not a through area. It is not to be driven through. We're in the process of developing that. So we're asking the residents, please refrain from cutting through there, even though it looks like it's open. There are times when you won't make it. So please do not try to drive through there.
Anything else, Manager Gerard? Seeing none, we'll close the manager's report, move to public comment. Those members of the public wishing to address the board may do so at this time. Same rules apply, first, last name, address.
Dave Wigan, 350 Brookton Road. I just want to make a comment on the agenda item to appoint the fire chief. I guess I'm surprised to see the contentious discussion that went on up here about it. It appears from my perspective, and I'm not involved in all the ins and outs of what happened to the former chief and what happens to the vacant position, but it appears there was a lot of animosity about the vacancy and how it occurred, and it appears that got in everybody's way, considering the appointment of the new chief. And I would have thought that if you simply looked at it as an open position, because that's what it was, that the residents of this township, as well as the board, would have considered Mr. DeMars a good catch for such a position. And I hope we haven't discouraged him and sent him down the road someplace and not to consider it again, because I think it'd be a big loss to the township. Thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
Bob Lance, 2663 Montgomery. Just a little bit of reflection this evening. I step back and I look at this. The majority of the board does not want to approve the supervisor's appointment to the fire chief position. Supervisor insists that he's going to keep bringing it back until he gets his way, which it sounds like you feel like you have the legal part of it. If I step back from that, I want to say 4 versus 3. What does that do to the morale of the fire department? What does that do to the morale of the citizen voters when we have some potential millage issues coming up? Are we going to be splitting the town so that it gets reflected in some elections that come forward? So I just encourage you to, this may not apply, but a few meetings ago, there was comments made about the County Road 565 that some bureaucrats in Washington and the EPA are saying you can't build a road. So then there's a reaction to it. And I'm concerned that these kind of issues can happen on a smaller scale within the township. So I just would encourage some resolution to it. And I'm not sure if I was going to be appointed to the position that I'd be real excited about it if I don't have solid board support. That's all.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else?
My name is Carol McGlynn. I live at 570 South Bannon Bloom. My items of interest are what's going on. Like today, there are guys out drilling holes in the street in front of our house. And so I went and visited with them, and what are you doing? And they're drawing a line maybe, and the plan is maybe someday we'll have a sewer. I live there. I'd like to know more about it, so I would hope that these kind of news things would filter to us residents who are really the taxpayers. My other interest is really just a news item. Has there been any follow-up on the Meyer proposal to come to the township? From other places that I visit on a regular basis, I really like Meyer stores, and so I'm waiting for Randy to announce that, hey, they're going to move in 2 blocks down the street. So what's going on in the township is of interest to many of us, and as is quite apparent, we don't come to the board meeting and find out. So tell the Mining Journal or Tim was here or 6 or somebody, because we like to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close public comment, move to additional comments from board members. Lynn?
I'll give you the 1-minute scenario of my deer. For those of you who may or may not know, I have the Cedar Motor Inn. My house is attached, and I just put my dogs out in the backyard, and they were raising a fuss. And what I'm assuming is happening is, I found out later that there were 3 deer crossing the road, and one of them either was hit or hit my chiropractor, oddly enough. And she pulled into the driveway about the same time the state police pulled in because they heard the 911 call. So when I was upstairs listening to the dogs, jumped out of the shower and threw on some clothes, thinking I was going to go and check on the dogs. My desk clerk started screaming. The door of the kitchen door was shut, so I opened the door, and she's down there in a panic, telling me there's a deer in the lobby, and she didn't know what to do. So I guess I wasn't totally thinking. I was thinking the dogs were in the house, so I slammed the door in my bare feet. Thought I was going to go downstairs until I came across the Bruce Willis hallway of ice, or of glass. So I scrambled for some shoes because I just had foot surgery and I couldn't put any shoes on. So I snuck on the side entrance to my office and called 911. And I wasn't sure if the deer was going to come back into the house, was what I was concerned with. That's why I slammed the door shut. So I felt like Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo sneaking around the corner with my clerk behind me, trying to see where this deer might be, and to find that he wasn't even in the lobby. So apparently there were 2 State Farm agents across the street who had witnessed the whole thing, and they came running over, and they were in my lobby before I got down there. And they said, apparently what happened, I have to back up, I guess. My clerk is sitting here at her computer. She hears the crash back here. So she gets up and starts walking that way, and the deer's coming at her. He jumps the 4-foot counter, heads for a window that's open, messes up the screen, and there's blood everywhere, and there's hair, and didn't get out the window. So I've been kind of euphemistically saying he saw the exit sign back this way. And he went down the hallway, past 8 rooms, went through a 3-foot by 2-foot window, got in the chair, messed that up, went in the bathroom, came back out. In the meantime, these 2 agents have run down the hall with us, and they saw him or her make 3 attempts at another 3-foot by 2-foot window. And the 3rd attempt, he got out, and I don't know where he is. I don't know if he's back in the snowbank. With the snow was pretty deep back there, so we couldn't get back. So it took 4 of us 4 hours to clean the office and disinfect and vacuum, and it was quite a mess. And then I called SCI and had them come and clean the room. So he's out there somewhere running around. It all happened in probably 3 minutes, we figure. So it was pretty intense. That's what I've been doing for the last few days.
Anna?
Can't top that.
Ernie?
Same thing.
Clerk Charlie?
Again, I'll be in the office May 2nd, Saturday, from noon to 2 for absentee ballot given out and receiving, and the election's May 5th at 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And our next board meeting is Monday, May 4th at 7 o'clock. And I'll put it on the next agenda, but I'll throw it to the board right now. Think about what you want to do for August. Have a Monday meeting or a Wednesday. It doesn't really matter to me, but I'll put it on the next agenda and we can talk about it then.
Trustee Pompo?
Nothing.
Peter?
Just want to tell Lynn that if you want to do a deer processing, there's a permit that you have to get and have inspected. You know, they'll come and inspect your building and that, so. Yeah, and a business license.
Yeah, I didn't even get the venison.
I'm
did
glad
you?
nobody got hurt. I heard that before, but I just thought that was really crazy.
I'm very blessed that
I'm
no one got
glad you never
hurt.
got hurt. Thank you.
She didn't even have a grill or barbecue or anything after that, too.
Mrs. McGlynn, we will, the borings that they were doing have to do with that potential of the road being fixed with water and sewer at a later date. It is part of the road rehabilitation plan to get it done. Superintendent Page and the Public Works Department has been setting aside money for that project for about 10 years now or more.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's rather interesting because when we bought that lot and it was built, I came to the board and said, you know, what do you got for utilities? And so when we got to sewer, well, there isn't any. I said, you have it in the bank. And the answer given to me was not in your lifetime. I think, well, maybe I fooled.
Long-range plans change.
It was here at the time, he said, not in your lifetime.
We're,
But I didn't think I was fully aged at that point, but it was not anything.
we're still trying to squeeze it in your lifetime. But we will try to figure out a way to get information out before, and I know that the Public Works guys did go out, I'm trying to remember what day it was, but they were going door to door trying to stop at everybody's house just to let them know what was going on. Okay, so they were trying to make sure that they got the information out and got some questions answered.
Resurfacing, I thought, well, I hope they don't start digging holes before or after or during or whatever.
Well, we don't want to build a new road and then dig it up a couple years later and put water and sewer lines in, so that's kind of the goal for the township. Randy?
Just on your second comment, just for those that are watching on YouTube after the meeting, we have not gotten a proposal from Myers. They have been looking at various pieces of property, but we have not had any kind of a proposal from them as yet. No, they haven't gone away. They're looking several places, not just here, but obviously Escanaba. They're a little further in the process there, and Sault Ste. Marie area as well.
And that'll close comments from board members. One last motion this evening.
Move to adjourn.
Support.
We have motion, a lot of support to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
40.